Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Mark from the States. How are we doing today? I'm doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate all of you. I hope you know that. Big Fake Couch, it's Big Fake. You know what to do. Please come all join me today. I'm going to learn something that I personally no clue about. Maybe some of you are not too familiar with it as well. So let's learn something today. Heligoland, does that ring a bell to anybody? Heligoland, I believe I'm pronouncing it right. Heligoland? I'm going with Heligoland. It's kind of a funny name. It's a tiny, forgotten outpost of the British Empire. Where is it? I have no idea. But I assume I will learn that in today's video. And speaking of which, please go and support the History Chap. That's who we're going to be watching today. This has come requested, so I'm excited to watch this. I love getting requested videos of creators who have already given us their blessing to watch and learn from their work. And today is no different, so please, there are a couple links below. One to the History Chap channel and one to this video in particular. And I encourage you to go watch it first, then come back, and that way you can give me context, of course, for things that I will always miss. It seems like there's always those videos. As you know, I do most of my learning after the video in the comments section. So please join the conversation. I love it. But yeah, get on those links if you have one subscription and or one like today. Please go give it to Chris in History Chap over there. Chris has been just a wonderful human, and join his email list. I get emails from him every week, and they are wonderful. They kind of highlight what he's doing and sort of like that. Yeah, it's really informative stuff. I love the part where it's this day in history kind of a thing. Really, really informative stuff. So I encourage you to get over there and be a part of his community. We are on our way to 10,000. As you know, if you join the live stream on Sunday, to those who were able to make it, thank you for coming and hanging out. Yeah, we're really close. We're like 99, 85, something like that. I don't know. We're like less than 20 away from 10,000, which is just incredible. Like I said, never really had the intention of doing this channel, our channel, to hit any certain milestone or anything like that. But now that we're so close to one, it's just fascinating. It's kind of mind-boggling that we've grown the family so large. But I am so grateful to all of you. So thank you. But Heligoland, did anybody know this? I'm sure there are a few of you, maybe many of you. I don't know, but we're going to find out. So come, sit with me, and maybe we'll learn something today. You know I will. All right, let's do it.
In 1890, the British Empire covered nearly a quarter of the globe. An empire, it was argued, upon which the sun never set. And yet, on the 9th of August that year, the sun did indeed set on a tiny, forgotten colony in the North Sea. And not because the locals won independence or because a foreign army had conquered it, but because of a bizarre land deal. In return for primacy in Kenya, Uganda and Zanzibar in East Africa, Britain gave up possibly her smallest ever colony.
Look at that place. Holy smokes. That is pretty wild. Just... Now, where is it exactly?
To Kaiser Wilhelm's Germany. This is the story of Heligoland, the tiny, forgotten outpost of the British Empire. For over 70 years, the British had ruled the little island of Heligoland in the North Sea. And when I say little, it really was,
North
or
Sea.
is, tiny. Just 0.4 square miles in size. Now, to put that into context, Gibraltar is 2.6 square miles, and the historic city of London, inside its Roman walls, is 1.12 square miles. Her nearby sister island, called June, is even smaller, just half her size. So how on earth did Great Britain end up owning this pinprick of territory 30 miles off the northwest coast of Germany? Well, we have to go back to the Napoleonic Wars. Having been defeated by the Royal Navy at Trafalgar in 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte was no longer in a position to threaten Britain with invasion. So instead he decided to hurt the country, which he disparagingly referred to as a nation of shopkeepers, where it would hurt the most: her economy. The French Emperor devised the Continental System, effectively a European trading bloc that would refuse to supply Britain with raw materials and also refuse to buy her products. Napoleon leaned on neighbouring European nations to join this system, including Russia, Prussia, Holland, most of Italy and Denmark. Now, whilst officially neutral, Denmark was under heavy pressure from France to use her navy in support of Napoleon. In response to this potential threat in the North Sea, the British decided to take preemptive action. In 1807, the Royal Navy bombarded the Danish capital, Copenhagen, and seized the Danish navy. Now, despite Heligoland's proximity to North Germany, the island was actually ruled by the Danes and had been for about 100 years. En route to Copenhagen, a Royal Navy squadron under Admiral Thomas McNamara Russell arrived at the island, and the small Danish garrison surrendered without even firing a shot. With control of Heligoland, the British had breached Napoleon's continental system. Just 30 miles from the German coast, it became a centre for smuggling in both directions, spying and political intrigue. In 1811, £86 million worth of goods passed through the island. Whilst Napoleon's continental system continued until his abdication in 1814, the British presence on Heligoland totally undermined his embargo. And that in turn would play a part in Russia leaving the system in 1812 and the war with France that followed. With Napoleon facing defeat, Denmark and Great Britain signed the Treaty of Kiel on the 14th of January 1814. That peace treaty formally passed possession of the island to the British, and Heligoland would remain part of the British Empire for the next 76 years. It's a little part of the history of the British Empire that tends to be overlooked. Britain's newest subjects numbered less than 3,000. The local population were ethnically Frisians who spoke a Frisian dialect rather than German or English, and most made their living from fishing. This little colony had its own British governor, or actually a lieutenant governor, its own flag incorporating the Union flag, and from 1867 issued its own stamps with Queen Victoria's head on them. In 1826, a spa was opened on the island, and through the 19th century, Heligoland became a recreational destination for the cream of European society. Soon, hotels with names such as the City of London, the Queen of England, and the Belvedere graced the seaside frontage. There was also a casino, which the Colonial Office strongly disapproved of, but which successive governors defended as one of the only ways to make the colony pay for itself.
Right.
As historically, the locals had never paid taxes to the Danes or indeed anyone else.
So is this still, well, we're going to find out. I know I'm jumping the gun here, but is this still a destination to get away? I'm interested to find out here in a little bit, but just, yeah, I mean, of course you got to have a casino. I mean, I'm sure that was a huge source of revenue, but just interesting on how land gets passed around. And the people who live there are like, yeah, who's our master today? Still going on, I imagine. But yeah, very interesting. It looks amazing with the high cliffs like that. The way it's kind of like, and we're looking at a drawing here, but with the beach down low and then the high cliffs, and just really interesting.
Locals had never paid taxes to the Danes or indeed anyone else. The laid-back colony became a hub for German liberals, avoiding the more draconian governments in places like Prussia.
Right.
One of these liberals was the poet, August Heinrich Hoffmann von Fallersleben. While staying on the island in 1841, he wrote a poem entitled Das Lied der Deutschen. Put to a tune previously written by Joseph Haydn 40 years beforehand, it began with the words, Deutschland, Deutschland, über alles. Yes, you've heard that correctly. The future German national anthem was written by a poet in a British colony flying the Union flag whilst fleeing reactionary governments in good old Deutschland. Isn't history brilliant? Despite being the home of German exiles, the Frisian population on the island refused to speak German. In fact, they refused to speak English either. They were content just to bumble along as they always had. But times were changing. In 1863, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Max was appointed as the 6th Lieutenant Governor of the colony. Wounded at the Battle of Balaclava during the Crimean War, the 31-year-old from Surrey was a fluent German speaker. That wasn't a problem to the locals. What was, however, was his desire to bring the colony into line with Queen Victoria's other possessions. The inhabitants were nonplussed by his idea of a legislative council, but were outraged when he suggested that they, like everyone else in the British Empire, should actually pay taxes. The protest was so vocal that the British government backed down. Meanwhile, the 1860s were seeing changes on the German mainland too. With the Prussian-led conquest of Schleswig-Holstein from the Danes in 1864, the Germans started to see themselves as the inheritors of that Danish interest in Heligoland. That romantic yearning for the British island in the North Sea became more strategic with the unification of Germany and the development of the Imperial German Navy and construction of the Kiel Canal in 1887. It became more urgent when Kaiser Wilhelm II ascended the imperial throne in 1888. He saw British control of Heligoland as a potential block to his naval and expansionist ambitions.
Can we just pause for a moment to just admire that mustache? Well, now the Germans want it back, right? So, what do you think they're going to do with it? Keep the spa? Keep the hotels? No, they're probably going to put guns on there and militarize it, I'm sure. Let's find out. We have a visitor. I just want to come say hello. Hello. This is Leo. For those who don't know, we're going to go ahead and dart out. This is Leo. He's our tripod. He only has 3 legs. 1, 2, 3. But this one is gone. Yeah, I know. He doesn't like me playing with it. He gets embarrassed. Yeah, I know. And sometimes he pretends it's still there, and he'll be laying there, and he'll try to scratch his neck, and he'll just be shaking his hip, but poor guy.
More urgent when Kaiser Wilhelm II ascended the imperial throne in 1888. He saw British control of Heligoland as a potential block to his naval and expansionist ambitions. The old Chancellor and architect of German unification, Otto von Bismarck, was eased out of office. His replacement, Leo von Caprivi, decided to deliver for the Kaiser.
There you go.
He approached the British Prime Minister, Lord Salisbury. What would it take for the British to sign over the island to Germany?
Interesting.
In the ensuing Anglo-German agreement in 1890, also known as the Heligoland-Zanzibar Treaty, the British agreed to transfer their ownership of Heligoland in return for British primacy in Uganda, Kenya, and Zanzibar in East Africa.
Wow.
At 950 square miles, just Zanzibar was a massive gain in land ownership for the British Empire. When you add in her unchallenged control of Kenya and Uganda on the African mainland,
they really wanted it.
It was a no-brainer of a deal. Not that everyone in Britain agreed. Queen Victoria was not amused, telling Lord Salisbury, "Giving up what one has is always a bad thing."
Oh my gosh, imagine having to tell her. And you're getting her that look right back at you. Oh my gosh. Just be nervous, sweating. Does not look happy. Oh, I don't know how you could turn that deal down. I mean, geez. At the time, right?
Others pointed out that the British possession of Heligoland would be a deterrent to German aggression.
Yeah.
Admiral Jackie Fisher would continue to call the exchange a mistake right up until the First World War. However, whilst the British held Ireland right in the middle of the sea routes leading out into the North Sea from Germany's naval bases looked threatening, the very distance from Britain
That's
and the
pretty
proximity
far.
to Germany made it highly unlikely the British could hold on to Heligoland and actually cause any harm in
Right.
the event of a war.
That looks pretty
What do
far.
you
Yeah.
think? But
Especially,
whatever the pros
I mean, in more modern times, sure, it'd be easier. But at that time, yeah, real difficult to try to keep control of it. You could see why the Germans wanted it.
and cons, the decision had been made. And that decision had been made with absolutely no reference to the local inhabitants.
Oh, no.
Just like in 1814 when the Danes had passed the colony to the British without any input from those on the receiving end, so it was again.
Yeah.
However, a poll conducted by journalists amongst the local population found that most actually wanted to stay as British citizens.
That,
On the 9th of
course they
August
did.
1890, the Union flag was lowered on
mean,
Heligoland
why
for
wouldn't
the
they?
last time, in the presence of the last governor, Arthur Berkeley. Previously, he'd been Lieutenant Governor of the Falkland Islands, and immediately prior to this current appointment in the cold North Sea, he'd been the Commissioner of the Seychelles in the Indian Ocean.
okay.
His father had been the governor of the Cape Colony during the Kimberley Diamond Rush in the 1870s. In fact, he gave his name to a town near Kimberley which still bears his name, Berkeley West. And incidentally, the town was the constituency that was represented in the Cape Parliament by Cecil Rhodes. Maybe I should tell the story of Cecil Rhodes in the future. What do you think?
I'm
The
always
following day, 10th of August
for that.
1890, Kaiser Wilhelm landed and claimed the island for Germany. The halcyon days of the spa resort was soon over.
Of course.
Heligoland was rapidly developed into a naval base and heavily fortified. It looked like those in Britain who saw the swap as a mistake were right. At the outbreak of the First World War, the civilian population were evacuated and concrete
Oh, they
gun
don't even get to
emplacements
stay.
installed, leading one future historian to describe Heligoland as the Gibraltar of the North. But the mighty guns built into the cliffs were hardly ever used in the First World War, and despite both the first naval battle of World War I, the Battle of Heligoland Blight, and the major naval battle of the war, Jutland, being fought close to the island, Heligoland never played a key role in the conflict. That didn't stop the British First Lord of the Admiralty wanting to launch an assault on the island fortress. His name? Winston Churchill, of course. Fortunately, he was talked out of it. At the end of the war, the two tiny islands were returned to Britain briefly as part of the demilitarisation of Germany required by the Treaty of Versailles. In a 2-year occupation, the British dismantled many of the defences. During the Weimar Republic, Heligoland reverted to its former holidaying economy.
Very
One
good.
visit to the island in the late 1920s was a certain Adolf Hitler.
Oh,
When he came to
no.
power in Germany, the seaside vacation industry went into decline.
Dude just ruins everything, no matter what. So did he build this? Because obviously the harbor is man-made. Did he build?
Secretly in 1936, and in contravention of the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler's regime started to refortify the island. By the outbreak of the Second World War, Heligoland had been transformed into a veritable fortress in the sea, including ultra-thick U-boat pens constructed with concrete capable of withstanding the biggest bombs at the time. These submarine pens and a brand new harbour were supported by 8.5 miles of tunnels and shelters dug deep into the rocks of the tiny island. Yet, despite all this expenditure and capacity, Heligoland was largely a white elephant. Its U-boat pens remained empty as Hitler's submarines moved to bases on the French Atlantic coast. Its harbour never housed any major battleships. On the night of the 18th of April 1945, just 3 weeks before the German surrender, and with little else left to destroy, the RAF turned their attention to the island. In about 10 minutes, 1,000 bombers in 6 waves dropped 5,000 tons of high explosives on the little island. The bombing turned the surface of the island into a lunar landscape, but the fortifications, including those U-boat pens, withstood even that pulverisation. The following night, Lancaster bombers from 9 and 617 squadrons of the RAF
617.
followed up by using tallboy bombs. The two raids caused heavy casualties, and the following day, the civilian population were once more evacuated from the island. They wouldn't return home for 7 years.
So they were bombing that thing with civilians still there? Yeesh.
Despite the German surrender on the 8th of May 1945, VE Day, it wasn't until 3 days later that the garrison on Heligoland formally capitulated, and Heligoland once more passed to British control as part of the Allied occupation of Germany. The British, both to prevent the fortifications being used again, and no doubt also to impress on the Germans who had actually won the war, decided to destroy them in an operation codenamed Big Bang. On the 18th of April 1947, in one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in the history of the world, they detonated 6,700 metric tons of explosives on the tiny island. Now, just to give you some sort of comparison, that is half the explosive yield of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, or over 200 times the largest mine detonation at the Battle of the Somme.
How is there any island left? I mean, jeez.
The size of the explosion was so huge that the authorities in Hamburg, 90 miles away on the German mainland, advised citizens to keep windows and doors open to alleviate the effects of the blast. Until 1952, the island was then used by the RAF for bombing practices. Finally, Heligoland was handed back to the West German government, and its residents were allowed to return. With a population of just over 1,000, Heligoland and the uninhabited June Island are now part of Schleswig-Holstein state. And after all that destruction, they have reverted back to their old selves. Quiet, laid back, beautiful, frequented by sailing enthusiasts and those looking for some tranquility.
It's amazing that they wanted to go back. Generations of having to be moved off and then brought back and moved off. Different countries that rule. Wild.
Most people in Britain probably don't even know where Heligoland is, let alone that it was ever part of the British Empire. But for 76 years, this island, just off the coast of Germany, with its own flag and stamps with Queen Victoria's head on them, was indeed the tiny, forgotten outpost of the British Empire. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. I release at least one new video a week, so keep your eyes peeled for the next
great.
one. In the meantime, why not watch another one of my videos now? They're over.
Yes. Go and support Chris over at History Chap. It's really important that you do. He has been a huge supporter of our channel and is, of course, like I mentioned, has given his blessing a long time ago, and still, I think I'd like to try to interview him. I think at some point he might be open to that if he's got time. He's super busy, but I definitely want to check out some of his other videos he's got here. Like how Queen Victoria's husband averted the U.S.-British War in 1861. That would be kind of interesting to learn about, but I've learned a lot, and hopefully a lot of it sticks with his work. So please get over there and support him. It's really important that you do. Happy to say hello to Leo and get him up on the channel so people can see that he's still around. The cats have been very, like I mentioned, we got new couches and they both have found a spot that they just love. So they don't come and sit on this thing much anymore, but try to show them as much as I can. I know a lot of you have asked. I hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. Has anybody been there? I know you have to go by boat, it seems like. So it'd be interesting, and you just feel for the people who live there. I mean, first you're Danish, then you're English, then you're German, and you're kind of being bounced around like pawns. And the fact that they have come back, and hopefully it remains the tranquil resort type place it is now. Hopefully it stays that way. But I love the fact that they took a poll, and didn't they do something similar in the Falklands as well, where they said they'd like to remain British. I just think that's just so awesome. So, very cool. Have a great day, everybody. And we will see you very soon. All right, take care. Bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark. And he's from